I was nodding in beat to the bass drum, but then I shook my head because I had to slam on the brakes because somebody just felt like slamming on his brakes right in front of me for no reason, as always. Daily occurrence in fucking Northern Virginia. You know, it's just... Okay, before I get too much distracted on that, today we're going to talk about what the U.S. can do for Syria. You know, I see all these snooty white liberals complaining on slates and Huffington Post. What can we do to save the poor Syrian children? Will someone think of the children? We're just such heartless monsters because we allow all these thousands of people to die. You know, it's been... I see an article, what can we do for Syria, like once a week, ever since the war started. Fucking 5 years ago, I've seen an article, usually written by a white person. What a surprise. White people trying to be the white savior once again when the world doesn't work that way. So, the short answer, or what we can do to help the Syrian people, is unfortunately at this point, absolutely fucking nothing. And I know the liberals who watch this will say that I'm a heartless bastard and don't care about the Syrian children. No, I do care. I wish the Syrian people could win and throw off Assad's dictatorship and install a democratic government, just like Tunisia did, just like Egypt did before another dictator took over, just like Libya did before they fell into chaos. So basically Tunisia is the only good example. I wish they could be like that. I really do. I rail against fascist governments. I hate authoritarian dictators, and Assad is one of the worst. I wish they could win. I don't think that's going to happen at this point. So don't say I don't care about the Syrian people. I rail against fascist governments don't do anything to me. Why? Because they're wrong. That shows you I care. But the thing is, the U.S. has fucked up way too much. The situation is infinitely more complicated than it was when it started, and there is no way with the U.S. government's level of competence. Man, that's shaking a lot. With the U.S. government's level of competence, there is no way they can effectively help the Syrian people and the Syrian rebels who are moderate and have the right to fight against Assad's government. That's something I want to clarify, that the Assad's propagandists or people that think they're against the U.S., you know, they think that the U.S. Incited this rebellion, that the U.S. had CIA agents that launched the revolution against Assad's government back in 2012, and that the Syrian people would never revolt against their dear leader Assad, who treats them so well, and that it's only the U.S.'s fault that this revolution happened. No, it's Assad's fault. He tortured and repressed his citizens for decades, and they finally got sick of it, and then they took to the streets in peaceful. The first wave in 2011 were peaceful protests, and he mowed them down by the thousands. It was only after the fact that he killed thousands and thousands of them that they say, I guess peaceful protests won't work, won't take up arms. So he caused this, not the U.S., not the CIA, although they made the situation worse. They did not cause it. That's what I want to tell the Russian propagandists that are in RT, Russian Today, you know, and all these people across the internet that defend Assad to the death and listen to Russian propaganda. The Syrian people have every right to revolt against Assad. That does not change the fact that there are radical rebels attacking Assad's government. It doesn't change the fact that the ordinary Syrian person who's been repressed by Assad's government for years has the right to take up arms against a government that represses him so much. That doesn't change the fact. They say there are no moderate rebels. Bullshit, there are. You're just saying that as an excuse. They're lying. All you have to do is look it up. But they are committed to the Russian narrative. It's not only the Americans that are so cling to their narratives. No, people around the world do it. They just deny facts. But, let's look at the clock. Okay, I got off subject, but I need to explain those basic facts before going into it. The fact that the U.S. can do nothing to help the Syrian people. There are way too many sides, way too many separate groups, way too many groups committing atrocities, way too many groups switching sides. It's an ever-changing battlefield. It is one of the most complicated civil wars I've ever studied. You know, the U.S. Civil War was pretty much straightforward. Confederates versus the Union. There were a couple of side groups that are fighting their own battle, whatever. But that was the main thing. It was 1 against 1, pretty simple to understand. This civil war has dozens upon dozens of groups with different ideologies, different loyalties, different values. You know, it's a clusterfuck. There's no other way to describe it. It is a complete clusterfuck. And to think that the U.S., which they're foreign, the people who go into these conflicts and decide which groups are worthy of receiving U.S. aid and weapons, they're fucking incompetent. They cannot do their fucking job at all. Because there's so many times where groups have duped them, gotten arms, and then used them against the rebels that we fund in the first place, or use it against civilians. We funded terrorist groups in Syria because we were not a good enough judge of a character, or we overlooked something, or we were simply naive and gave people weapons, said they're going to fight the Assad government or ISIS, and they turned around and commit atrocities with the weapons that we gave them. Okay, we messed up. There is nothing we can do that will help the situation now, because we have bled our hands with the blood of innocent civilians. We cannot accurately determine which groups really are committed to U.S. values and which ones are simply lying to get money from us. We can't determine. It's too much of a clusterfuck. There's a thing called unintended consequences. The U.S. repeatedly ignores the possibility of unintended consequences. It just storms on into a conflict or starts a conflict thinking they're the white savior. We're Americans. We're the best country in the world. We're white people. We're going to show these uncivilized brown people how to fight a war and how to instill democracy. And just look at our track record. I've already mentioned this in previous videos, but our track record for foreign interventions actually working is just completely pathetic. The people in charge cannot do it right. Afghanistan, we were going good for a while, but now the Taliban control most of the country, and then we're pulling out, and the Afghan government can't do anything. It's still chaos. Civilians are still getting killed. It's still a complete clusterfuck. Iraq is a complete clusterfuck. There's still territories that ISIS has held for years because the Iraqi army is too fucking incompetent to take it back from them. Syria, Libya, like all these places we intervene, we just make it worse. We cannot do anything. People repeatedly call for a no-fly zone. Look what that did in Libya. Things went well for a while. We helped the rebels overthrow Gaddafi, and then the whole country descended into chaos. It was just so sad how they were so close to getting it right. And they completely fucked it up. With our help, we're the ones who helped the rebels with our bombing campaign. Now you can debate as to why we did that. That's an argument for another video. But the fact, those unintended consequences, how could we have known that by helping the rebels defeat Gaddafi, that the country would split apart into different factions, just completely drown into chaos? I mean, there's no way you could have told that from when we first started in 2011. But that's the whole point. That's why I'm saying do not intervene. Because there are unintended consequences you have no idea could happen. You just end up making the situation worse. That's why you should be cautious. That's why Gary Johnson has a no foreign intervention policy. Because all it does, it makes things worse. And you can say, well, I didn't mean for that to happen. No, but the same thing as when a person drinks and drives, he doesn't mean to crash his car and kill someone. But when you have people telling you, if you drink and drive, this is what might happen. It's a good chance it might happen. He's like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. It's the same way of people saying, well, let's just put no-fly zone, and let's just deploy some boots on the ground. You know, just advisors, you know, not in combat roles. And this is the unintended consequences, because they tell them, well, this might happen. There's unintended consequences, just like Iraq. We overthrew Saddam really fucking fast, and then we just suck at nation building. We cannot put values into other people's heads and have that be sincere and just, oh yeah, do this, build this nation, do it this way. You know, a country that has never known democracy ever, and you're expecting it to go from a complete dictator like Saddam and go straight to a U.S. democracy, you know, in 2000s. It took us hundreds of years to evolve that democracy in this country. And this is America. If it took us hundreds of years to get from the democracy we had in the 1700s, which by all standards today is not a democracy, but it was at the time. If it took us hundreds of years to get from there to here, where everyone has equal rights, you know, women can vote, gay and lesbians have legal protection now, you know, minorities can marry white people. Like, it took hundreds of years for us to get all that passed. And you're expecting Iraq to just pull out of its ass and just fucking, oh, here you go, here's a copy of American democracy in the middle of the desert. It's not gonna fucking work. And that's why it descended into the sectarian chaos following the invasion. Unintended consequences. How could we have known that could have happened? Well, if you study history, you would have fucking figured it out, but Bush never opened a history book in his fucking life. He can barely read. Oh, Bush. Is it kind of sad that I miss the days of Bush where it was like cool to be anti-government and I don't know. I was a kid when I was in the Bush years, so it's kind of nostalgic even though he did completely fuck up the country. But anyway, that's a whole moral of the story. We cannot fix the problem. You want a no-fly zone? Not going to work. You want some of these right-wingers, these extreme right-wingers, want us to invade Syria like we did Iraq. And it's like, holy fucking shit, did you not learn from Afghanistan and Iraq? Did you not see what happened when we went in there? Thousands of U.S. soldiers died for U.S. imperialism. They were not protecting our freedoms. What freedoms were the Afghani and Iraqi people taking from us? No one to this day can answer that question for me. What rights? They weren't fighting to defend our rights, as the right usually says that the military fights for. No, they were fighting for the 1% who wanted to launch those wars to benefit for themselves. And you want to do it a third time. After Afghanistan and Iraq were complete fucking failures, you want to do it in another Middle Eastern country and get thousands and thousands of U.S. soldiers killed to line your greedy pockets and to plunge the country more in debt. Just spend trillions upon trillions of dollars. For what? You know, it's just, we already have foot soldiers in Syria. Contrary to what the mainstream media says, if you just Google it, we have CIA operatives in Syria fighting. We have mercenaries fighting in Syria right now as we speak. We're getting involved in that bloody mess, which makes us a combatant in the war. So anyone who wants to fight for Assad or for ISIS can attack us at home here and be completely legitimate because he's attacking the people that's attacking his country. You wonder why ISIS all of a sudden starting attacking us the last couple of years? Maybe because we started attacking them in Iraq and Syria. You know, they didn't attack us before we started doing that. Again, this goes with my previous video. Do not give the terrorists excuse to attack us. If you attack someone, do not cry like a fucking baby when they attack you back. I do not want the U.S. to fight in Syria. I do not want Syrian terrorists to go attack us. This isn't like neuroscience to understand. Once you get involved in a war, they can attack you back. Well, what if we didn't intervene in any wars, as Gary Johnson proposes? What if we don't attack anyone? Then no one has any reason to attack us except for the few crazy people who are, like, they actually are crazy terrorists. I'm not going to deny that. But when reporters talk to these fighters that are fighting against American forces, hardly any of them are incoherent bastards who just spout nonsense and twist Quranic verses. Very few of them are like that. Most of them are level-headed and say, the U.S. killed my family. I want revenge. I want them out of my country and stop killing my people. Well, if we weren't there killing his family and his people, well, then that particular person wouldn't take up arms against us, would it? That would wipe out a lot of reasons why terrorists attack us in the first place.